Wokey, and I'm not here with Zen right now. But the Shonen Archive will continue. So, yeah, last time we recorded something, we said that the next time we would do it, we'd be doing the upcoming 5 episodes, which is what we're going to be talking about today, which is episodes 282 to 286. But then remember how we also said that it looked like Zen's life was looking like it was going to be fine? It turns out the life was not done with Zen. It turned out 2025 was not quite over for Zen. And he's now dealing with something that is so outrageous in terms of how shitty of a thing that he has to deal with that I had to finally be the one to say, we have to come up with something else. I can't keep bothering you because I feel bad because he never feels bad about it. But I feel bad when someone's having to deal with so many hard things in their life. The last thing they need is someone telling them when they're likely already done with work and then they have to deal with everything else and they can just relax, is having their friend come up to them and say, hey, so this is when I'm available to record. Thankfully, Zen is the kind of friend who never finds any bother with that at all, but I have a problem with it. So I told him, I will figure out what to do with Shonen Archive. You focus on getting this specific thing done, and I'm being very vague about what it is because I don't feel it's right for me to specifically say what it is unless Zen wants to come out and say what he is, and yeah, it's a whole thing. So I said, okay, let me think about it, and then I thought about it for a while, trying to think about what we can do, because obviously we want to continue the show, and we want to continue it with us keep going forward. But I also feel bad because the way that YouTube works, if you stop doing something, it does end up hurting you. And even regardless of how the YouTube reach or whatever, because like I said, usually fake Grand Order is the thing that carries my channel, it's still bad that we are constantly not going with Shonen Archive. Because it's funny enough, Shonen Archive does kind of grow in the background a lot of the time. But a lot of the time when I reach to a new person, when they start Shonen Archive, I have to tell them, well, unfortunately, when you get to the current log that you get to, it's kind of like done. We're like waiting for Zen to be better. So I thought about what we can do. I really don't like the idea of continuing on without Zen, but I came to this conclusion and I talked to him about it, and he's game for it. So this is the way it's going to go. I'm going to continue Shonen Archive normal by myself for the most part. Maybe occasionally getting a guest on like I did with D-Free for One Piece and stuff like that. But for the most part, it's going to be me kind of going forward with Shonen Archive and finishing off Gintama and some of the other series that we've got as well. But when Zen is available, then we will do something that I've called Shonen Archive Plus, which is us still continuing from where we left off and then still talking about those episodes. So eventually it will get to a point where I will finish Gintama and Zen will have not finished Gintama. But when Zen is available to again, I will go back and watch those episodes and we'll talk about it. And I feel like this is also going to be good for addressing another issue that has kind of been prevalent, which I've had talked to very many Gintama fans about how to handle it. But some of the later ends of Gintama, I've had a trouble trying to figure out a way to cut them in a way that kind of makes sense, and whether or not we need to do super big jumbo episodes where we cover 8 episodes in a single 2-hour big thing. I don't know. Because I didn't see it yet. There was no way for us to know the proper way of going it, and without trying to spoil us too much, many Gintama fans tried to point us to the correct direction. But if I can watch Gintama myself, I'll know exactly the kind of breakdown that we want to do, and that way when I get back to Zen, the actual order of operations of how we cut it up should be much better, where there won't be a huge, like, funny episode in between an extremely serious one or something like that. So I think it's going to work out for the best. And I feel like this is the best option. And Zen was down for it because like I told him, Jump Plus exists as a way for manga to continue on without, like, with people constantly taking hiatus. So why shouldn't we do the same with Shonen Archive, where there's now a Shonen Archive Plus that whenever Zen is available to us, while he's off in his hiatus, whenever he is available to get to us again, then he'll join it, and maybe someday down the line, it'll eventually come to the point where Shonen Archive Plus will no longer be necessary, because we will have caught up on everything, and then me and Zen can continue on forward the way we planned. But the only thing that would stop ever Shonen Archive is me or Zen dying, and it doesn't look like we're dying anytime soon, so we want to continue forward, and that is the basic breakdown of how it's going to go. If you're disappointed because you're only going to be hearing me from this point forward and Shonen Archive, I understand. I also would love to be talking with Zen right now, but it's not possible. But I also want to continue doing the show and keeping it going and not having such a large spurt of it, because even though there are very many dedicated people out there, it would be better if it was always just a continuing thing, which hopefully it should be now every Sunday. It should be every Sunday a new Shonen Archive. But anyway, with that big-ass intro out of the way, let's begin Shonen Archive, shall we? So like I said last episode, we did say we were going to talk about the next upcoming episodes, which are going to be to episode 282 to 286, which I have done. So that's going to be today's breakdown. Hopefully I'm able to do. I'm going to try and figure out if I can maybe need to switch up the presentation on this a little bit, just because it is just going to be me solo. I don't know how interesting it's going to be if you need to hear me for about an hour or so, but maybe I could make it a little bit interesting or do something in the breakdown of the episode to make it maybe go a little bit faster or something like that, so I can then get to my thoughts and stuff like that. I don't know. It's new uncharted territories, everyone. We're going to figure it out together, shall we? And hopefully you do continue to watch. And if you don't, then keep an eye out for Plus when it comes out, and continue to wish Zen a good luck in the future. Hopefully 2026 is much better for him, because he definitely deserves much better than what he's currently getting. But anyway, let's start, shall we? Episode 282. It is called A Phoenix Rises from the Ashes Over and Over Again. So, this is the basic plot line of it. Late at night, Hasegawa is scaring people about summer vacation because it looks like they are enjoying it. And he's saying that they should not be basically enjoying summer vacation. All the plans that they had that they were going to use during summer vacation, why don't you use it? Why don't you do it at any time? Just, scare people off from doing anything during summer vacation. He gets so good at scaring people that a lot of people actually start to get close to him in terms of wanting to hear his scary stories about the endless summer vacation. About how he is on a current never-ending summer vacation and it sucks, and so a lot of people want to keep hearing about him. So he has a new job now. And he's at Yorizoya because even though he's happy to have the new job, he has a problem of he doesn't know where to go from here for his horror stories. So he needs their help with this. And Kagura starts telling a scary story to Hasegawa, which is a very basic kind of Japanese horror story, which ends with Phoenix from Saint Seiya. Icky, I call him Icky. I remember him as Icky, so I keep calling him Icky, but they call him Phoenix for a lot of this. I think his name might actually just be Phoenix Icky or Icky Phoenix or something like that. But either way, her story has Phoenix showing up, and this starts bothering Hasegawa in a lot of ways, because he says that's not scary, that's just Saint Seiya that you're doing, and he says that there's certain aspects to horror stories that make them scary, such as when you go to confront someone, you say a specific line, and the one that they use here a lot of the time is what is the reoccurring joke. It is, look behind you, I believe. A person right behind you or something like that. So then she tries to tell another story. The first story was about a purse, and the second one is about a kid who dies, and then during that one, Phoenix again comes up and ruins the scary story. She finishes her story, and Gintoki is scared, and Hasegawa thinks it's because of the incredibly shitty, scary story that she is telling. But actually, he's really afraid of copyright infringement, because they just got finished dealing with To Love Ru and Kuroko's Basketballs for their parody, and now they're doing this, and now they're going to get even more trouble. Shinpachi then decides to tell his story, but again, it gets interrupted by Phoenix, who starts a never-ending conga line where... he gets interrupted by Kagura, who says that his story is typical. There's no originality to it. And that's why she keeps having Phoenix show up. So then Gintoki's left, and he is going to tell his story. But but it like takes too long. And this is the story where it was making a lot of this episode feels like it really depends on, hey, did you read Saint Seiya or watch it at any point? Because if not, you're probably not going to enjoy this very much. But he makes reference to the princess from Saint Seiya and Jabu, who is a jobber character from Saint Seiya. He's the bronze saint. If you don't know how Saint Seiya works, there's like bronze saints, gold saints, silver saints. They're like a whole hierarchy of it. And his specific zodiac sign is the unicorn, I believe, or I guess his animal is the unicorn. And they actually mention Jabu a whole bunch, and she's like getting dragged by Jabu. And it goes on for an unbelievably long time. And there he starts saying like, hey, you need to not drag it out. And then he also goes, oh yeah, I guess it's over. Because the way it is that he's calling on the phone. And every time he calls up the phone, he picks up the phone. He's like, I'm right here. I'm right there. I'm 3 meters away. I'm at the intersection on 3rd right now. And then she yells at him from the window and says, because he gets lost at one point. And there's also another point where he like loses his horn as well. So he's not even a unicorn anymore. He's a horse. And she yells at him saying like, I'm right behind you, idiot. And that is their play on the I'm behind you of Japanese horror stories. And then Hasegawa says like, first of all, a heartwarming ending to a horror movie sucks, which is also very funny for a couple reasons. So they decided to try and make it a little bit more, when he says it sucks, suddenly there's a phone call. And it's a representative from the copyright agency looking for them. And then the copyright agency says that they're from the Oeda Copyright Agency. In this way, it transitions into Hasegawa telling this to the kids. And he says that I'm on the intersection of 3rd right now. And it scares the kids. And then this starts a... I don't know if it is either like saying that this has been a Hasegawa story all along, or this is what he experienced and then it goes on here. I wasn't able to check that. But either way, it ends right there, and then they start playing the ED from the Saint Seiya anime, which is pretty good because they have a lot of reference. Obviously, the main Saint Seiya is Gintoki. Otai is the face mask girl from Saint Seiya, who I believe is Eagle Marin, if I remember correctly. And then the other ones are the various characters from there, but instead of having the specific zodiac sign, they have their night outfit be themed to something that they have. Kondo is a gorilla, Yamazaki is a badminton, Kagura is Sadaharu. They have Jabu also hanging out there in his little plush form. Okita is made up of his bazooka, but his helmet actually has the sleep mask that he wears. Katsura is Elizabeth. Shinpachi is just a pair of glasses that you can see downstairs. And Hasegawa kind of looks like the cardboard Gundam, which either he's supposed to be the cardboard Gundam or he lives in cardboard, so it makes sense for him to be there. And for Gintoki, the helmet has his like special glasses. And that is episode 282. So how is it? So let me make some notes here, because I did make some notes as I was watching through it of some key moments that I was enjoying it or liking through it. Let me also pull up some other notes that I have here where I also took screenshots of stuff they said. I really digged a lot of the jokes about Saint Seiya. I read Saint Seiya. It's available on the Jump app, unlike the Gintama manga itself. It's really good. It's also very... it's very 1980s anime. Manga. You should definitely check it out if you can. I was looking forward to one day showing it to Zen, but maybe as I'm waiting for Zen to get better, maybe that's one of the ones I go after Gintama's finished, that is. And I have to also cover some of the other stuff that we maybe missed along the way. But either way, there's some good jokes about here. Like they talk about the long-ass staircase that it takes to get to the House of Zodiac, which is straight up from Saint Seiya, because there's a part in Saint Seiya where they're just like non-stop climbing. It's a full-on arc to get to the run, and it's a very good joke. Another little nice joke that I liked was when Hasegawa was telling his ghost stories. There's like a line of kids waiting for him to tell the stories, and in one of the lines there's a ghost girl actually. There's an actual ghost waiting in line, and I thought that would maybe play into the episode. But it doesn't. She's just kind of there. There is also the ghost girl who is dealing with Phoenix. Another thing is that the jokes about Phoenix are so fucking funny, because if you've read Saint Seiya, while I was reading it, I remember, because Phoenix, or Ikki, is one of my favorite characters from Saint Seiya, just because he is the best way that I would describe him is that he's kind of like that Green Ranger, or the Green Zoo Ranger from Super Sentai or Power Rangers, however you want to say it, where they are an enemy at first and then they kind of join later on. Phoenix is also the brother of one of the characters in Saint Seiya as well, which plays on. And this man is unbelievably overpowered. They make a joke here about when he's showing up and he's like, "You fell for my demonic illusion fist," and he like sanctifies the ghost girl. Hasegawa makes a reference like he's so OP he ruins scary stories at Mach speed. And if you ever read Saint Seiya, he's actually pretty similar to that as well. At one point, he has his entire arm frozen in pure ice, and he heals it by just chilling inside a volcano. He's like, I need to heal myself, I need to feel better, and then the place that he goes to heal himself is a fucking volcano. So I really digged a lot of the Phoenix jokes, because I liked Phoenix. I also did like the bit here where I said that there's a part where he pacifies a ghost. That ghost is at the ED at the end when Sadaharu is running. He looks to the sky, and he sees the ghost girl up in the sky, up in the night sky. I thought that was very good. They change it every single time. I made sure to make note of it, all the single one of them. I thought that was really good. I also really like the ED. I don't know, maybe it's just because I can understand how Sadaharu feels of feeling lonely as I was going through this, knowing that I was making this journey without Zen. But at the end of that ED, he gets happy because he gets Wakagura. It's kind of like that. Yeah, I understand the feelings, what I'm saying. Very emotional. Anyway, continuing on, I like the bit about them talking about getting in trouble. I had to look this up to see, did they actually get in trouble for the two Love Ru and Koroko? But typically whenever they do their parodies, the actual manga people really like the parodies that they do. I think that's true for Koroko as well. So it's just a little poking a little fun of it at that point. I thought that was really good. Really nice references to that. The ED, where it's just straight up the ED from Saint Seiya, is really good because the song they play is also kind of like almost like beat for beat the same song that they get from there. Fantastic stuff. So overall, I think this episode is pretty good, but also I can kind of make the caveat here where it's like, I don't know how this feels like if you don't like Saint Seiya. I think the Phoenix jokes still land if you don't know anything about Phoenix, just because of how absurd they are. Oh, another good point here is that there's during one of the stories of Shinpachi saying where it's about two brothers, when Phoenix shows up, they actually do show Phoenix's brother, which I cannot remember off the top of my head who's his brother, other than he is, it's, let me be sure about this one, because I want to be 100% accurate when I start talking about the character here, just because I was about to say something that was potentially going to get me. It was Shun. There it is. Andromeda Shun, who has an entire thing about him as well. He was made to be specifically very girly in feature, specifically to say that dudes of any kind can be strong. It doesn't matter how you look like. You don't have to look like a traditional manly man to be strong, which I thought was always a really nice message for, especially for the 80s, to give a message like that. And then in the modern age, someone forgot that and they changed that character to a woman so they could have a female Pegasus, and it kind of ruins a little bit of the, well, why did you pick the one that looks like a girl? You should have picked one of the other ones. It would have been much better. But anyway, that was episode 282. All right, not bad for the first one going. Let's move on to episode 283. It feels weird without saying to someone. How do you feel about that, Zen? I don't know. Maybe one day I will find out. But for right now, let's continue on with episode 280. Actually, let me make sure to take a drink, because also I usually take breaks. Make sure to also keep yourself hydrated as we go on. Amen is episode 283. And the way it goes is like this. So Yorizoya is watching Tama give advice to customers in Atose's bar. They ask what's kind of going on, and Atose says that a bunch of men has decided to start just confessing to her. with a bunch of them asking for advice, despite that. They say, like, does that make it business better in the bar? And she's like, no, not at all. They're not here to drink. There's actually a guy actively asking to stop drinking. And even though they're not really participating in the bar, Tosei is really happy that Tama is at least enjoying helping people. And then Gintoki decides that, yo, how can I take advantage of this? And so he decided, I'm going to help you out with this. That way that Tama can still be happy and the bar will be able to have customers. So then the next day, they're standing in front of a makeshift chapel next to the bar. And Gintoki says to Tama that, like, hey, we are going to make our own thing here for people to say, so that people can confess to their sins and stuff like that, and they don't have to work with the bar. And they can also get money from this, and he'll become a rich man. So then he also starts watching behind the chapel as Tama sits down and starts the confessionals. And also, when they're doing the confessionals, they can't see their face, and you can only hear their voice. But it's distorted so that it's privacy. So then the first guest arrives, and the first guest is saying he has an apprenticeship with a useless boss who's really shitty. He calls him a bunch of bad names, and he confesses that while he was cleaning his boss's room, he threw a mop and accidentally destroyed a figurine of him, and can he have forgiveness of him? And Gintoki says, well, if it's such a shitty boss, it's not too bad. So Tama basically says, like, okay, yes, you are forgiven. And he goes, oh, man, I'm so relieved. And then he takes out the fixed figure that he was, which is of Kitsuna Anna, the weather lady, and he smashes it. And as he's smashing it, Gintoki says, man, for such a shitty boss, he sure has really nice taste. Anyway, the next confessioner comes in and says, it says that she is an alien visiting Earth to go find a husband, yet he is useless as well as a slew of bad things. She confesses that while she was doodling near her sleeping husband's face, a mop was flying at her. And in reflex, she chopped it in two, and one half is stabbing the figurine and the other stabbed the husband, even though he didn't look like he was affected by it at all. Gintoki goes like, wait a minute, that seems very similar to what happened previously as the mention of the man of the mop who fell over and then it destroyed a figure. That's how likely it happened. He says that the husband deserved it and her sins are forgiven, which Tama then says to her that everything's good. She goes, oh, I'm so relieved. You know, the mop is still kind of lodged in him, and it's his cross to bear on this one. And Gintoki's like, huh, that's weird. And then he looks behind him and he sees that he's had a mop stabbed in his ass the entire time. Thomas says that he's had that basically the entire time he's been there today, and she didn't really want to say anything because it was so lodged in there. And Gintoki goes like, no, it's fine. Everything's cool. And Gintoki starts to be like, you know, those two... he starts to have the feeling that was Shinpachi and that was Kagura. But then the next person, he says, like, maybe it was just a coincidence. And then the third person is Sadaharu. A giant dog enters the confessional booth, and he's like, that's clearly just Sadaharu. Sadaharu starts confessing, and Tama is able to translate it because she's a robot. She confesses that he was trying to poop on his sleeping owner because he says he's useless and his feet smell really bad. But then when he goes to poop on him, the poop is very runny and it spreads all over him. And so where his friend is mopping up, it kind of makes him spill. He slips on the poop, accidentally throws the mop, which then goes to another co-worker who then chops it in half. As it's chopped in half, it stabs the owner in the ass, as it's mentioned, due to a spinal reflex. The owner head kind of pops up and it slams into the dog's crotch. And it makes Sadaharu kind of fly out the apartment door and landing on top of someone. He tries to say that he says there's a lot of blood everywhere. He's not able to bring them back, so he kind of fearfully hides the body in the closet. And he says, can my sins be forgiven? And then at this point, Gintoki is full-on angry, and he shoots at Sadaharu, saying, you need to get whoever is living inside of that closet and throw them away. Dump them into the river. And so, if you want to see forgiveness. And then so Sadaharu goes off terrified and goes to do it. And then he's like, okay, we're perfectly fine. And then here comes the next person who's here to confess. It's Matsudaira. They were going to say that they were actually going to have a day off, but then they were going to take some time off, but then Matsudaira shoots him and he starts his confession. And his confession is basically is that he snuck the Shogun outside of... He snuck his friend, who looks a lot like the Shogun, outside the castle, and an animal fell on top of them, knocking them out, and now he can't find them. He calls him Shochan, and it's very clearly the Shogun. This is clearly the Shogun. And Gintoki makes the realization that Sadaharu has killed the Shogun and has now left him in the closet. Tama says to Matsudaira that maybe you'll find Shochan eventually. All you need to do is kind of search every closet nearby. And Matsudaira says, oh, you're right. I'm not going to give up hope. I'm going to search out every closet in the vicinity. And then he leaves, and then Gintoki thinks that he's going to be okay because Sadaharu is going to go dump the body. And then another person comes in for a confessional, and this time it is Hasegawa, who looks very wet. And Hasegawa starts his confession off is that he says he believes he's betrayed a friend. He says he's homeless, and he says that his friend allowed him to stay at his home. But because his friend is also poor, he had nothing worth stealing, and so he started eating his dog food and his pudding. And then all of a sudden, randomly, his door opened, and then it was thrown into the river, and that's why he's currently soaking wet. And Gintoki realizes that Hasegawa has been living inside the closet at the same time, and that means that inside of him was likely the Shogun. So then he asks them, "Did you sense another presence while you were inside the closet?" And and he says, "Oh yes, now that I say it, I believe I did." He's like, "Okay, well, if you want to be forgiven, then you need to go to the body, find the other body in the closet, dump it in the river, be submerged, you'll be forgiven. Easy enough." Okay, next confessional. We go through another one. This time, it is... So then Sachan shows up and says that she believes that the sin she's committed is that she has annoyed her boyfriend. I think because she was living there and she was also living in the closet, and Hasegawa basically threw her out and put her into the river. She was able to knock out Hasegawa as they were struggling, and that's why she's so wet. But she believes that the problem that the reason he's angry is because she actually started eating the pudding, because she would say that this was because she saw a little bit of a bite marks on it, that it meant that she was getting an indirect kiss by eating it as well, not knowing that the entire time it was Hasegawa that she was getting indirectly kissed by and not actually the person that she wanted. So then Gintoki says, like, maybe it wasn't the Shogun. Maybe it was completely, a big coincidence. He tells Sachan that her boyfriend will forgive her and then she should go out and buy some new puddings. Sachan is like, oh, that's great. I didn't think that my boyfriend was angry at me because he gave me this flotation device, and she pulls up the Shogun's corpse, which she said she used as a life buoy to go save her, and then she leaves, and she goes to return also the life buoy to Gintoki and put it back in the closet. This time, now Gintoki's actually panicking. He says, Tama, I need you to go retrieve whatever Sachan was holding and then drop it off at the police station for him to go see it. While she goes to go do that, another person comes in for a confessional, and this time it is Yamazaki. He confesses that he saw Tama acting weird behind the station. Gintoki did say try not to get caught when he's left, but maybe she didn't hear it in time. And he ate what she left behind, which was a pudding. So the thing that Sachan was holding, she interpreted that as the pudding. So she took the pudding and then put it out front in front of the police station. Yamazaki is taking this as so he's kind of like being a little shy because he says that he's like, I was a little suspicious, but we were gonna get married at some point, and he's like a little bit like, how should I do this? So then Gintoki says that even though he's very annoyed, he's going to use Yamazaki to get the suspicions on him. He tells Yamazaki that Tama found the Shogun's corpse, but knew that she may end up in trouble. So he said, it's basically, I need you to leave a command there saying that it was a fake dying message saying it was Zura who did it. And Yamazaki says... and then he says, if you do this, maybe one day you'll get to taste Tama's pudding again. And so he gives him a thumbs up and says, pudding, and he goes off to go do it. Another confessional comes in, and now it's Hijikata. He doesn't know it's Gintoki behind it, but he tells him that they've been investigating the Shogun's death. He finds one of his subordinates was knocked out cold, and there was a dying message. And it was left by Katsura, who had showed up, and you could tell because when he went to go put down it was Zura, he crossed it out and said, actually, my name's not Zura, it's Katsura. And so he leaves an entire message. And then at the end of the message, it says, like, I found this corpse here. Was it you who did it, Gintoki? And so now everyone assumes that that Gintoki has killed the Shogun, and he's going to go look for him. And Hijikata asked him, do you know where Gintoki is? And he says, no, I don't. And so he says, well, forgive me. Thank you. Amen. And then finally, the final confessioner comes in. Gintoki's panicking, and when he sees it, he sees the person, and it is the Shogun. And this time Gintoki is the one who actually confesses. He says that he's been using the confessional for ill gains and that he'll never do it again. And the Shogun kind of looks at him and says, like, okay, I guess I think if you're feeling really sorry, you can be forgiven about that. And all of this relief that he has is quickly gone away because the Shogun reveals that he cannot actually remember anything. He decides that he's going to start a new life with this new friend that he found. And the person that he found was Katsura, who declares them that he has now had he calls him, I think, Shigi or Shochan. I think in the next episode is Shochan, but he says that you're now going to join the Joy Rebels. So they both go leave to join the rebels, and then Gintoki, who has just been broken at this point, he stops, and the Shinsengumi arrive to arrest him, and he just accepts it without ever doing a single, he doesn't struggle, he just accepts his fate and says, yeah, go ahead. And that is episode 283. My god, this one was a long one, so let me again point up some notes that I have here. There's a really funny joke here when he talks about he can only see the chins. He makes a reference that there's only one person with a distinctive chin, and that's Inoki, who is, of course, a wrestler, Antonio Inoki, who has a very large chin, and I enjoyed that reference because I am a wrestling fan. At one point, which I thought was a pretty good a joke based off Japanese language stuff, Catherine attempts to seduce people away from Tama, and it doesn't work, and they all kind of leave because they're like, ugh, this is like gross. So then she makes a confession to Tama, saying she asks forgiveness for for attempting to seduce people, and then Tama says, don't worry about it, there was no seduction, they just thought you were gross. And then she says that she takes it as if she was called Dr. Giro, and then she says that I'm gonna go marry you off to Krillin, which I thought was funny because Giro apparently means Dr. Giro is his name. Gero means grotesque, like kind of like a vomit. That's why Gero is like what frogs say, but if you just one singular Gero means that it's grotesque or it's gross or something like that. So I thought it was a pretty good joke on this one. And I had to go research this because I was like, what? How did the leap get here from Dragon Ball to whatever they were going on here? And again, another good reference because obviously Krillin was also married to an android, so good based off of there. I really like how everyone in there, when they enter the booth, they all say Amen, and they all treat it like that's the end all stopper. At one point, they said like, "Hey, is it really over?" And he goes Amen, and he goes like, "Don't Amen me." They treat it as the end of the conversation, which I took a pretty good kick out of that one. Another good bit here is there's a point here when Gintoki says Jesus in English, which I thought was very funny. I liked Yamazaki still clearly having a crush on Tama. Not enough to stop him from taking her pudding. That wasn't enough to get him to stop. But the idea of like what motivated him was the idea of like maybe one day again you can have Tama's pudding. He's like, you know what? I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to basically throw away everything I knew about being a Shinsengumi, and in order to get with Tama, which, you know what? I understand it. Completely understandable. And then another good reference is that at the end of the ED, the weather girl's up in the sky as well. Which is pretty nice. So yeah, overall, how did I feel about this episode? Now that I've talked a little bit more about some of the things I liked. This is an extremely long setup of an episode. Talking about it now, it's crazy how it kind of ends up feeling. I think the thing that it reminds me is that Gintama is very good at being able to do bits that only exist in a singular thing. If this was any other anime, this bit right here would be like a 2-minute thing, and then they would move on to the crux of the actual like plot line, which would have been Katsura hanging out with the Shogun, which is the episode that is next. This is also a part of an arc. I should have mentioned it at the beginning, but it's called the Confessional arc. And yeah, so I really did like that this was basically the entire thing. It goes on for a crazy amount of time. There's a lot of setup, and when you think that it's over, it continues. You keep thinking at some point the episode is going to continue on into what is the main thing, where you're like, okay, now he goes out and goes running looking for the Shogun. No, it's just people nonstop coming to the confessional, and I think it ends up playing very well when you get to the end, when you feel the defeat of Gintoki. Like, you feel him when you've done with everything, where you're like, okay, you know what? I really don't want to deal with this anymore. I feel defeated and I'm going off of it. So very good. I like the twist at the end here. I think it reminded me a lot of one moment. Reminded me a lot of the episode where it was all taking one place at the ramen shop, and it kind of played off of the VAs and kind of like what you assumed was going to be happening. Not on the same tier as that one, because I think that one is like the ultimate fake out in terms of funny things, and it really shows how far Gintama is willing to go for a joke. But this is another pretty good example of how far they're willing to take a joke and make it reach its conclusion and get there at the end. And I think they do a very good job on this one. And I also enjoyed a lot of the confessional jokes. The Amen really got me, and also that this name of this episode is Amen. Okay, so once again, take a sip of my drink. And let's continue. So, the next episode and the final episode of the Confessional arc is Being a Leader is Tough. This is episode 284. So, it begins like this. There's an evening Edo report that says the Shogun Tokugawa Shigishigi has been missing for a week, and the details of his disappearance are likely going to be... Everyone is basically suspecting Gintoki because of the confessional of... Not a confessional, it's because Katsura blamed him for it. So back at the Joya headquarters, Katsura's, the rebels are celebrating because they're like, oh, this is it. The White Yaksha, he's back and he's delivered us away from the Shogun, yes. And Katsura says, yes, of course, the White Yaksha is back. Gintoki has done well and he will return back here and he'll be welcome back. But let me introduce you to the new leader in training, a guy who I feel has a lot of potential that I felt in it, Shochan. And then the rebels all take a look at him and they're like, that's clearly the Shogun. That is just 100% the Shogun. And so, the episode goes as a series forward of Katsura trying to train Shochan to be the new one. There's also a pretty good bit here where they're talking about, like, every time, that's the Shogun. It's like, not Shogun, Shochan. Very funny. So they start up a series of games. They start by playing Jenga, because he says that to be a leader, you have to be able to kind of give, like, leader training. And he says with Jenga, you have to be able to kind of, like, maneuver your people around. And then the other things that they make him do during the game is, like, he has this woman yell at him while they're doing it. And then also Elizabeth is going to throw volleyballs at them while they're also doing the training, and it's really funny because Katsura takes all the volleyballs to the face. He's unable to really get Jenga. Like, the first thing that Elizabeth strike for is the Jenga board, so he doesn't even get a chance to do the Jenga. And then the lady calls him a fool on the TV, and that sets off Katsura because he says, I'm not a fool, I'm Katsura. And of course, the Shogun goes to do it, and he just absolutely kills it. They played Reversey, which they said this is the game where if you... The only way I played this game was in the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX PSP game. But the way it works is that there's a black square... Not a black square. A black circle and a white circle. If you trap the black and white circle with your dudes, it flips them over. Katsura has put up a bunch of insults on them that will attack their character. So there's a bunch of insults that put in there, like they're bald or they're something else or whatever, to attack their character. And so they played a reversey together, and Katsura wins. And it's really funny because while he's doing all this, his people are like, he's clearly just like showing his weakness about this. And so he wins it pretty handily. He makes the entire board black, and that's when the Shogun reveals that he couldn't actually bring it to himself to insult Katsura for how perfect a leader he is. So he actually, what he did was painted the white sides black and put his own failings on top of it, which again makes everyone extremely impressed. They're going, wow, this is unbelievable. And then for the final game for a test of leadership, it's just Uno, which Katsura immediately loses after the Shogun hits him with a +4. And so the Shogun now becomes the new leader of the Joy Rebels. And the Joy Rebels are pretty much ready to join up with the Shogun now. They're like, maybe he was never that bad of a guy at all. Maybe we could just join him and then this is the new life for us. So Katsura goes to them while they're playing their game and says that he's going to go save Gintoki because he has not actually been able to make it out. So he can only assume that he's currently locked in, and he tells them don't come after him because they're not going to be able to join him. And he keeps trying to make it be known what he's going to do. The others tell him, hey, can you be quiet? We're trying to play a game here. And he goes off. As he's about to go leave for his journey, Elizabeth shows up, and he thinks Elizabeth is showing solidarity with him. But Elizabeth says, if you're going out, go and return these DVDs and also stop acting like you're the leader of the place when you're no longer the leader. So then Katsura goes to Gintoki, and Katsura is begging Gintoki to help him restore his position. And Gintoki is annoyed because he's like, I'm trapped in hell and you're asking me for help. This is just stupid. Prison guards show up and they see that Gintoki is with Katsura and they're going to attack him. But then Shochan and the other Joshi show up. Joshishi. And then under Shochan's leadership, they save him and are planning to raid the building next. And so Katsura says that, and Shochan agrees that the easiest way for them to go do it, and this would also be the best way to decide who the leader is if they kill the princess of the castle, which is Soyo. So they're going to, whoever can bring her head will be the leader of the Joy Patriots. So they go off and they attempt to go find her room. And as they kind of go off and go do it, they do the classic bits of what they do here. Like at one point, the Shogun loses his entire bit of clothing and exposes himself to some women, but everyone is still surprised about how regal he can still be and noble during all this. And eventually they all get to the room. And when they get to the room, they're actually, Gintoki is surprised because he sees that the room is filled with, half of them are the Joy Patriots and the other half are actually members of the Shogun's team, palace guards. And they both admit to them that they were realizing that at some point Shogun realized it and Katsura realized it as well. Katsura realized that it was the Shogun all along, and the Shogun realized that he was with Katsura the entire time, so they decided that they were going to test each other. And they just wanted to see what the enemy commander was like. And because if they wanted to kill each other, they would have had many opportunities to do it at any point that they were together, but neither one of them ever did. And so he asked them basically after checking on the commander, how does he look? And Katsura says that you're just like any other leader. You're stupid, and also you have a very furrowed brow. And so the Shogun decides to leave Katsura and the Joy Patriots go free. But they also make a promise that the next time that they are going to meet each other, that one of them has to die, and they agree, and they go off. Because they both... whoever but one of them has to die because they have to try and make Edo and Japan a better place. They go to agree it. Gintoki asks, hey, can I be free now? And he says, yes, of course you can be free. Soyo's also awake because she says, like, hey guys, can you be a little bit quiet? I'm having a sleepover with a friend of mine. As Gintoki and Katsura go to leave, the Shogun is apologizing, saying of course he's free. I've jumped the gun a little bit, and Gintoki says, hey, don't worry about it, you can just buy me some lunch and we'll be all good. And he forgives him, but of course he says, fuck you to Katsura, because he's actually the reason behind all this. And then all of them are attacked by Soyo's friend, who ends up being Kagura. And Kagura says, she told you to be quiet, I was just able to go to sleep. She drags everyone under the blanket, and as she drags about, Katsura says, like, leader, it was you. And she goes, like, shut up with all your leader nonsense. She beats them all up, and she goes to bed, and everyone has a happy good night. And that is the end of episode 284. So some other additional notes. The lady who says you fool on TV is apparently a reference to a 2012 Japanese drama called Kuro no Onna Kyoshi. There's also a bit here where they talk about band leaders as well. It's also a big Japanese pop band reference that I just did not understand, but it's fine. And yeah, so this episode, some bits that I liked here that I said. Obviously, the meeting up with Shogun versus Katsura was very good. I think up until this point, there haven't been that many meetings between the Shogun and Katsura at all. It's always been understood that this is what Katsura wants, and he wants to eventually one day take down the Shogun, and I believe they have seen each other passing by, like in certain episodes, but there's never been a full focus on them specifically talking to each other like they are in here. And I found a lot of it very interesting. Obviously, a lot of the bits are very funny when they're doing the Shochan and the Shogun leader, where Katsura is being one-upped as a leader, and he's getting very annoyed because the Shogun is so regal, and this is one of the very few times where you get to see the Shogun, I think, actually be the leader that everyone sees him as. Because for the most part, he's usually the butt of jokes, and there's still some jokes that are making fun of him, of course. But there's a nobility to him that makes people like him, and they kind of go for it. And then we get to the actual crux here of why I think this episode is so good. So obviously, there's always been a little bit in the back of my head about how are they going to be able to approach the Katsura and the Shogun thing. The reason is that Katsura is based off of his real-life counterpart, which was obviously an anti-emperor, anti-shogun character who was attempting to lead Japan into a completely different kind of like path that it was going for, and the Shogun kind of is representative of the path of that which he hates, and both of them mingling would just never work. So I was really curious to see, because Katsura is obviously a fan favorite, a lot of people like the Shogun, how would they actually handle two characters that, by the letter of the law, they really shouldn't like each other, because they kind of represent the opposites of what they would like Japan to be. What with Katsura being anti-alien and stuff like that, about trying to keep the borders of Japan kind of closed off, and the Shogun who is trying to be a little bit more open and lead Japan into a new future and kind of stuff like that. At least if I forget, because it's been a while, if that is the actual goal here for a lot of the Gintama ones. But I'm basing it off of, because they are based off of real life Japan kind of situations, I assume it's very similar to that. And I thought that in most shows, I feel like the confrontation between two characters who are fan favorites like this, who are both also two funny characters, would play out a little bit different, which the obvious one would be the chicken way out, which is both of them like each other and they kind of like find ways to not go for it. But I think they actually did a much better path, which was them coming to an understanding that you alive is never going to work for me. And that's never going to work for Katsura, where the Katsura and Shogun can never actually truly be friends, because they both represent things that they don't believe is right for Japan as it goes kind of forward. So when he says his thing where he says, the next time we meet, one of us is going to have to die, I think it actually fits very well, and I kind of like that they kind of keep this thing going, where it's like, well, Katsura, you don't have to actually kill the Shogun because he's actually a good guy, and the Shogun shouldn't have to kill them because he's actually a good guy. But it doesn't matter if both of them are good guys. They both fundamentally disagree on what is the proper path forward for Japan, and there's no way for them to actually see eye to eye and go forward. And the only way that it can actually go forward is by the violence that is inherently implied by both of them existing, where neither one of them can exist. Both of them both want what is best for Japan, but both of them disagree on the way to kind of do it. And both of them at least come to an understanding and a respect of whoever wins it, then they get to actually be the one who says what is best for Japan. I guess at that point they accept that if one of us dies and the one who lives is the one that is correct and will set the path forward for Japan from that point on. And I thought it was a very good kind of confrontation between the two of them, a very good night kind of reference to the actual people behind them, and I ended up liking it a whole bunch. So I thought it was a very good. It was a good, funny episode, and the bit here where it was a little bit serious was also pretty nice. So overall, a good little mini episode arc here. So that's episode 284, and we'll move on to the next one because these two are going to be very easy to talk about and should be very quick. But before I go, let me take a sip of my drink. After talking about how much I really digged an episode, let's talk about an episode that maybe has a little bit less to it. Episode 285, which is Love is a Roach Motel. So, the basic setup here is that there's a summer festival going on, and Kondo is disturbing a bunch of young couples because he wanted to go on a date to the festival with Otai, but of course she said no. She's going to go hang out and be with Kagura and stuff like that, so she's just going to say no to him. Okita suggests that because he's causing so much trouble, he puts on a cockroach mask on him, so that way at least the Shinsengumi won't be blamed for it. And he takes on the mask that looks a lot like the mask of Kamen Rider, except for instead of being a grasshopper, it is a roach. He calls it Gokibori. But they call him like the Gokibori Chief, or he's like the Master Road Chief, Black RX. And so he starts pretending, I guess, to be the Mask Road Chief, Black RX, and he runs into Kagura and Otai, and Kagura kind of runs off, and Kondo offers Otai to help go find her because Otai says she doesn't have any money, so how she can go do it. And so then they are finally standing in front of a game stand that's being run by Kintoki, and Otai says that, hey, if we wait here for Kagura, maybe she'll show up, and maybe we can play some games. And then the games that Kintoki wants them to play are extremely expensive and anti-Gokibori, which is anti-cockroach. And I feel like at this point you should probably figure out where the episode is going. So they do various games. They do a shooting gallery. They do the classic summer ones, the shooting gallery, the candy carving, scooping a goldfish. In every single one of them, in the first game, there's an old man where she wants to get a purse specifically for Otai. But as Kondo is attempting to go do it, he's going to go shoot an old man who has a purse because that's the way the game is set up. Originally, he wanted to make the shot from like 100 miles away, like a sniper. He says, I want an easier one, so he does, and there's an old man, and his dead wife has the purse. And he can't bring himself, Otai can't bring himself to shoot it, so she shoots it off screen and says, like, it's okay, you don't have to get it for me. And then for the next game, there is a bunch of different carvings of candy, which every single one of them gets harder because every time it looks like, they say, oh, you can win money if you do this perfectly. He goes to go give him, like, here you go, it's supposed to be a worm, and he gives it to him, and it turns out to be the goddess Benazatan's white dragon king avatar, and he goes, like, it's ice cream, and then when he gives him the real one, it's like, it's the goddess Benazatan's white dragon king avatar ice cream. And there's another one where there's, like, just a full-on fucking dude in 3D, and in that one, Otai punches it, and then all he has to finish is take off the giant penis that is left over. And as he's going to go take off the penis, the kids from the last sketch show up and are saying, like, hey, we're poor and we want to eat the candy, and Gintoki shoos them away. And then that's when Otai punches the thing so that the candy can go all to them. And then finally, the goldfish game, they go do it. Otai shows that she's actually amazing during a practice round of picking up the goldfish. She's able to get like 50 in a single go. So then Gintoki rigs it again, so where she has to be on top of a building and then jump down to go get the goldfish. So she jumps, and as she's jumping, before she jumps, Gintoki he says, like, you're gonna get us killed by making us jump off this building. He's like, it's okay, and he puts a little he puts a noose around his neck saying, it's okay, you're safe here. He's like, this is also going to kill me. So Otai jumps thinking that she's safe, but her rope isn't attached to anything. So then Kondo holds it. And as she's kind of dangling, he tries to go rescue her. And she's like, whatever, man, let go of me. I'm trying to get these goldfish. And then the kids from the previous stories show up again. And this time their grandpa, who has lost their wife, jumps off the building because he's going to go kill himself. And Kondo says, like, I have to save them because all this entire time Otai has been selfish and selfless, and I have to make sure that she's okay. She's able to get the goldfish and everything. So he breaks through a window, only to discover after he's like, I'm gonna save you all, only to discover, like, oh, it's okay, we're already at the bottom. So it wasn't actually that high up. So then Otai goes down and uses the old man to get a single goldfish, and that knocks out Kondo. But the mask falls off and it kind of goes into the water, and that's when it reveals that the entire time the Yorizoya group has been punishing Kondo for pretending to be someone else to be with Otai for some fucking reason. No, it's not because of that. Because he was stalking her. Basically, they were punching him for stalking. And they're like, whatever, fuck him. And Otai says he's not so bad after all. With the mask on, they said like, oh man, look at him pretending not to be the gorilla just so he could get closer. And then she like hugs the mask and says, you know what? Maybe the mask was able to help me see something I hadn't seen in him before. So this episode is just kind of okay. It's a very summer themed episode. I've always actually kind of been curious to go to a summer festival like this. I've seen them in games like Persona 4 and Persona 3 and Persona 5. The Persona games a lot. But obviously I've seen this in other shows. Tenchi Muyo was another one that had them. So I kind of like the setup of that. Some of the jokes here are also pretty good. I like that they made him a cockroach version of Kamen Rider. I like that the mask like has a glint to it every single time he's going to go do something. At one point, the brand of bag that Otai wants is called the bitch brand. It just has the words bitch on it, and it just made me feel like this feels like something maybe my sister would have gotten at some point. But yeah, the main basic thing here, it becomes very obvious what is going on almost from the second go, from when Kagura shows up, because like, aren't you guys looking for her? And then Kondo never figures it out, so it's kind of like, okay, whatever. It almost feels like Kondo just allows himself to get punished because he's just so focusing on Otai, only for the end to reveal like, actually, yeah, we were fucking him over. The problem is that they were just fucking him over for such an unbelievably long period of time that I was like, okay, it's getting a little excessive here at this point. So maybe I was just starting to feel way too bad for him. So maybe that's why I wasn't feeling it too much, because there's been better episodes where Kondo gets punished where I feel like he deserves it more. But for this one, all he was really doing was like, I don't think he was even really stalking her. I guess like being mean at a festival is bad, so he should be punished for that. But he wasn't actively stalking her for this case, I don't think. I mean, unless they just started hitting him in a general sense. It's really weird. I don't know how I feel about defending Kondo and his stalker tendencies. I understand he has an unbelievable list and he in general deserves to be hit for anything, but for this one, I don't know. I ended up feeling pretty bad for him. I did like the little moment at the end where she does the hug of the mask and is like, alright, you know what, he's not that bad a guy. But overall, I think this is a pretty just kind of okay episode. Just kind of put it on in the background and watch it a little bit and just be like, oh yeah. Oh man, what a fun little fun thing. Apparently the I'm seeing here now from a trivia thing that the bitch brand on the handkerchief and bag are the same brand as Sequoia's pipe in the Yoshiwara in Flames arc, which is hilarious. I didn't realize that the Sequoia's pipe was fucking called bitch branded. That's fucking hilarious. Anyway, let's continue on. Like I said, that was a very simple one. Let's move on to the final episode, which is a two-parter, episode 286, which has a part A and a part B, with part A being, well, let me take a quick sip. With part A being, a Begirama Summer. So let's go over this one. So the Yorizoya group are helping Soyohime enjoy summer. So they're eating a bunch of watermelon slices on a bridge. Kagura says how hard it is to enjoy watermelon because there's seeds inside of it, and the princess agrees and says the whole drama of watermelon is being able to overcome the seeds inside of them. So they have an idea that they want to play a game with watermelons, which is the Sequoia game, which is something that is pretty common in Japan. It's the thing where you get blindfolded and you kind of hit it with a watermelon. Kind of pretty similar to piñatas and stuff like that. So they put it on and they kind of start going to do it and they help guide her, but their instruction confuse her and she ends up wandering the streets. And is able to stop a purse thief from stealing a purse, and then she also beats up a couple people, including a policeman. What is assumed to be a policeman all the entire time saying thwack and sizzle, which are Dragon Quest spells. So the cops go to arrest her and take her away, and that's when they reveal that they're actually not the real cops, and they're actually here to just actually steal her. They're going to ransom her off to the Shogun. So the Yorizoya go following the police car, trying to figure out a way to save her. They decide to go, but they also don't want her to be traumatized by the experience, which I feel like at this point she's suffered a lot of traumatic experiences, but sure, whatever. They get followed by a watermelon truck, and they use the watermelons to go help out save the princess. They're getting chased by the truck. They're behind the truck. They throw the watermelons at them. They make them crash. They're holding the princess hostage, and she's kind of oblivious to the entire thing because she's still blindfolded. And she's starting to have fun from the drama that is happening that Gintoki mentioned earlier, and Gintoki agrees. And he says, the watermelon's finally sweet enough, and he guides Soyo to smashing a watermelon that he throws up in the air, and she fucking does an amazing kick to the kidnapper's face, knocking him out. And Gintoki pretends that the planet was a part of their group or anything, and he says, oh yeah, this is the way it was gone, this is the way we do it. And then, unfortunately, they eat the melon, and they discover that it has gone bad due to the exposure of the sun. Saddest ending of an episode I've ever seen. There's nothing worse than spoiled watermelon. As someone who has had some pretty bad spoiled melon in the past, it is not a good feeling. It's nothing worse than watermelon has gone past its prime. So that's part A. So, some notes that I have here for it. I did like the Dragon Quest references. There's a lot of them. She says a decent amount of them, which are, here's some of the spells that she says. She says Kirill, Boria. She has Firebane. She does Vivify, Zing. A Kazing. Actually, I should say Kazing is one of them. Crackle. They make a joke about saying at the end, because I guess it's better. You should not sizzle a watermelon. You should actually hit it with Snowstorm, which is Crackle, also in English. There's so many different translations to these fucking spells. But yeah, Fizzle, Kazizzle. At one point they said, like, Zizzle is like her favorite fucking spell because she just nonstop starts spamming it. Evac is another one that they also use. So a lot of good Dragon Quest references here. It's a very, it was a very, alright episode. Very, very cute in what it was trying to do. The thing that got me, like, super curious, because I was like, so the Sukawari game is what they play, which is the watermelon splitting. I was wondering, where did this come from? Because I've seen it, and it's not just here. There's a lot of things with it. So I actually went and looked it up. And here's some stuff about it, because I thought it was interesting. So from this one, from a place called Tokyo Treat, so who knows how real it is. At least I'm not asking some kind of shitty AI, but this is what they're saying. This requires further research is what I'm trying to say. When did people start playing it? There are various theories about the origin of the Sukawari. Traders introduced watermelon, a fruit native to Africa, to Japan via China during the Edo period from 1603 to 1868. Some historians theorize that African traditions inspired the Japanese practice where people cracked open watermelons to pray for an abundant harvest. Other theories include the legendary beachside duel in 1612 between the samurai swordsman Musashi Miyamoto and Kojiro Sasaki. Some believe that after Sasaki's defeat, his ghost appeared as a watermelon, which Miyamoto smashed to drive away his spirit. Another story claims that the samurai used watermelons for target practice with wooden swords, closing their eyes to train. Historians claim that the feudal lord Hideyoshi Toyotomi introduced the game to boost morale among workers during the construction of the Azuchi Castle in the late 1500s. So, there you go. There's an entire organization built around this game. Very interesting, but yeah. This was okay. Again, usually between the part 1 and part 2, the first one is... There's always one part that's stronger, and I feel like the stronger episode is the next one, which is part P of 286, which is Not a Damn Thing Happened in Summer 2015. Damn. So the way that this episode breaks down goes like this. Shinpachi is lamenting the end of summer, while Gintoki mocks Shinpachi, saying that you had expectations of a fulfilling summer, and he mocks him, saying like, yo, you're like a NEET who was like playing a visual novel, you're doing this. It's like you're expecting some kind of beautiful woman to show up out of nowhere. And they too rush because they hear a knock at the door, and they go like, oh shit. They expected to be a beautiful client to show up on the last day of summer, but nope, it's Seita, which Seita is obviously not a beautiful client in any kind of capacity. But if you count his mom and his Sukoyo, he kind of comes with beautiful women whenever he enters a plotline of some kind, because they do show up right afterwards. But anyway, he comes to Yorizoya to ask him to help him finish his homework since he has not started it at all. He states he refused to go to Sequoia and Honowa in fear of getting in trouble because he should have been working on it the entire time. They split between the work. They split the work between them, and then Shibachi gets language and social studies. Kakura gets math and science, and Gintoki is tasked with helping him with a picture diary. Seda only did the first day, where he watched Laputa on TV and had forgotten what he had done for the rest of the summer month. So they decide to draw the cloud watching for the castles for the next few days. They do like a bunch of different methods, saying like obviously you should just make it so that Laputa takes more than a single day and everything. And they keep like making references back to Laputa, which is like I think the second episode that is heavily based off of this specific movie, which made me feel like I should really watch this movie. Because when it's at least two, I need to be able to be like, okay, the next time this thing shows up, I'm gonna know, and I know for a fact that it's extremely popular in Japan, so there likely will be a couple other episodes referring it. But anyway, they start trying to say like, hey, try and do your best. They're trying to elongate it. They're trying to do everything they can to make it interesting. They talk about how he, on the first, he with his friends went to go beetle hunting, and he watched Azumi climb a tree and get a beetle, and he finds one himself, and then Gintoki somehow makes it all about how he saw actually a girl's panties and was aroused by it, and then he draws like a little beetle for him, and the beetle looks like it's exactly where a penis would be. So very classy here at the end of the summer days. I would honestly, if I was grading this homework, I would be laughing my ass off. But I think that's not what you're supposed to do when a kid turns into something like this. Anyway, he says like, "Dude, stop messing around. This is actual homework." And then he finally remembers something, because the main thing that he is saying is that he couldn't remember at all what happened during the summer. He remembers that Sequoia and Hinawa went to go see their first fireworks, but unfortunately it rained that day, so then they put up little sparklers and they enjoyed them in the rain underneath a bridge together. And Congress says like, yo, we need to like prolong the story because, you know, it's very cute, but no, maybe this can go on further. And she ends up choosing a choose your own adventure book, which once again leads back to Laputa and then also Dragon Quest at the same time. And he says, now it's getting really confusing. And then so he says like, okay, well, to be honest, I still wanted to show him fireworks. I took him to another festival, but his friends invited him going there, and then they refused because they misinterpreted what he said. They thought that they were getting in the way of his friends, not knowing that he really wanted to show them the fireworks. They got in an argument, and then Seda ran off, and he had to go ask someone who he knew for advice. And he draws a mysterious figure, which is a shaggy-looking person, and it's basically very clearly Gintoki, and he extorted all of Seda's money to go play pachinko and do other things. Under the guise that he was helping Seda for the festival. They both run out of money and they watch Laputa for basically an entire week. And then Seda says like, dude, I had such a boring summer. And he says, hey man, Congra and Shibachi cheer him up and say like, listen man, the summer's not over. You'll see here that there's still a single day here. One more passage to write about. And he says, like, what can you write about? So one on the 28th, what did I do? I finished a bunch of homework, or maybe you did something else. And they go to see that they have brought over Sequoia and Hinawa, and they're going to go make a firework by shooting Gintoki into the sky as he has him tied up, because they have figured out that the fuzzy man that he was getting help from was very clearly him, who faked it helping him. So they set up the fireworks, and they say, you're going to enjoy them tonight. And so they shoot off the firework, and everyone watches as the fireworks go off, and they end the summer. And he says, man, this was a lot of fun. And the firework in the sky, they cut to a child's drawing of the event itself. And it is Gintoki in the style that he drew him in his picture book. And he has been blown up in the sky as they all enjoy it. And that is the end of episode 286. I thought it was a very cute, endearing way to end it. This one really did feel like an end of kind of summer thing. As a kid, I think I only had to deal with summer homework like one or two times. It's not something that happened very often. from me that I can remember, at least. And if I did, and to be honest with you, if I did have it, I very rarely ever ended up doing it because I was not great at school ever. But I did think that was a very good way of showing off a summer vacation. Not the end of summer vacation about like, hey, the homework. And I thought they did it in a very interesting way. The picture book is also not something that I've ever seen. I think I've seen it in a couple other things that did make me interested. I don't know if I'd ever be able to do a picture book myself just because most of my days are like not super crazy eventful compared to a kid who's actually going out there and doing stuff. Maybe I just feel sad if I did it, but I like the story that they did there. There was a lot of little silly jokes just poking fun at him. Probably the most like egregious jokes are usually the panty ones, which you know, I'm not above a good panty joke, but this one just felt weird just because it was Seida's clearly they were talking about Seida's classmate and him getting excited by panties. Where it was just like, this is getting a little bit of a weird tangent that you're going on here. But I understand that they were just kind of doing it in like a teasing way to make fun of the kid and saying, no, it's nothing like that. You guys suck. Stop doing this. And yeah, I really enjoyed the fireworks at the end. I think Seida, I really do like Seida. I do like Hinawa and I do like Sukoyo, so it was nice to kind of see them and kind of have their continuing adventures. I really do like that Seida seems to be like being raised by his two moms. I know he has one mom, but he really does have like two moms when you consider it her as well, Sukoyo. And so I like seeing them anytime because I think it's always a pretty good time whenever they show up. And that is episode 286. And we did it, everyone. We finished our first post-Zen Shonen Archive for the most part. So I guess this is the part where I say where you can what's going to happen next. So next episode, which hopefully should be in a week or so, it should be Gintama. And I'm going to attempt to finish off Gintama by myself, doing what I can. Next week should be the Soul Switch arc, which is going to be episodes 287 to 286, which I believe is one of the things that has been referenced in the OP that I've been watching. So that will be a fun watch. I hope anyway. I don't know much about it other than by the title. I assume someone gets their Soul Switch. I'm going to assume it's Gintoki and Hijikata, so that should be fun to watch. And then after that, it's going to be a couple of mini arcs as I get ready for the big one. I think it will likely be 2 more breakdowns. So after the Soul Switch arc, I'll probably do the Kaitel arc and the 2 other episodes that are followed up by it. And then for another episode, it will be the Afro arc, the Fade Illness arc, and maybe 298 and 299. And then the next time that this comes back, I'm doing episodes 300 to 307, which is the Shogun Assassination arc. And then after that one, it's going to be the Farewell to the Shinsengumi arc. And then we move on to the last bit of episodes for Gintama as we continue to go to the end of it here. I'm serious about this. This is going to end relatively soon, I guess. A shame that it could not be here with Zen. But that just means that we get to experience it twice whenever he comes back and we get to do Shonen Archive Plus. But anyway, if you want to see more me stuff, you are already on the channel. If you want to show support, the best thing you can do is leave a like, comment. It does help. You never have to worry about it because Shonen Archive isn't going anywhere. Because obviously I would not be doing this if I didn't feel the need to constantly bring back Shonen Archive. I will always find a way to bring back Shonen Archive. I've been thinking about if there's better ways for me to kind of get it out there for people to enjoy. If you know anything about it, tell me, what do you usually listen to these types of videos out there? Because there's really no reason for it to be a video other than, like, hey, you can watch it and YouTube is your preferred place to watch these. But if there's another place, I can make some efforts to try and get it on there and kind of work from there. And then from that point, I probably have to also make actual art for Shonen Archive to make it function or whatever. But yeah, if you want more me stuff, you can go on my channel. It's going to be very busy with a lot of the Fago stuff and Christmas coming up, but I'm going to have a lot of videos being released. And now this one, I'm also going to be on the rotation. For more Zen stuff, Zen's channel's out there, but it's going to be a very long time before he's probably ready to do videos again. But you'll know when he's ready to do videos again because this is the #1 channel in terms of Zen content when it comes to him. But that's it for today's Shonen Archive. Thank you very much for watching. I guess, do I still do the goodbye where I shoot someone? Hold up. Since we are waiting for Zen to return back to us. Maybe what I'll start doing is for anyone who leaves a comment in the previous episode, they're gonna be the one I say goodbye to, and they get shot in the place of Zen. So, oh yeah, this is a great way to also get my channel in any kind of way monetized or demonized or something. So, and also just to make sure, just because not always everyone can comment on it, there'll be repeats. But anyway, we'll go here. All right, everyone. Literally Nobody 3311. Say goodbye. I forgot that usually I make a noise, and now that Zen's not here, I don't need to make the noise, but I still made the noise. All right, goodbye.